Alright everyone, look at this. So this is a moto gadget on the K75. Listen to her sing. Okay, so here's the problem. I recorded this video yesterday on my way home from picking it up. I wanted to tell the whole story on how this bike came to be since my last video in the series. But unfortunately, the first frame has the setting, me on the bike, and then there's 20 minutes of audio, but the frame never updates. It basically gets stuck. So I have the audio without the video, and I'm gonna try to reshoot this, and in fact it might even come out even better. But the only downside of today's video being that it's freaking just nasty outside. It's gonna rain in the next couple hours. This is my first time, well, second time wearing the Climb Outrider pants. So they're a kind of a higher denier fabric. They're meant to be a commuter pant. But I've worn them to the office once, and in the office they're not as, it doesn't work out. They're too noisy and too stiff to be ridden or worn all day at the office. So, so this is the K75RT. And I purchased this for a year. I'm not going to give the backstory. I thought of this thing enough. The important part about this bike is that it was an RT. It's now a C, kind of. It's got an RT tank, which is big. It's got an RT luggage. It's got RT, functionality, frame, etc. Whatever that means. See how fast this thing goes. For others, no, can't do that. There's a cop there. Fun fact, I never got a speeding ticket before in my life, so not going to start anytime soon. So this bike came to me from the guy in Virginia, rode it home December 21st of 2018, and then I put this bike, well, I'm going to start this video by saying that, like, when you are purchasing or taking on a project, you got to know where your limits are, where your skill level ends. And so for me, my skill level ends at electrical work and body work. And so as soon as this bike was, I had done everything to it by the Haynes manual mechanically. And in fact, I bought this bike for $1,000 and then went around and someone said they actually wanted to buy off me for $4,000. But with the stipulation that I had done all this mechanical work to it, which is fine actually, because I was looking at about $1,000 in parts. And then I realized that, like, the front shocks, I'd never done front spring replacements or oiling, so I paid a shop to do that. I realized that I couldn't actually flush the ABS system because I needed a special BMW bleeder for the ABS Gen 1 system. And then I realized I didn't feel confident doing the valve checks. And then I had touched every bolt on this bike, and I decided, well, it also would be nice to have BMW get this thing a look over. So at that point, and also the stipulation of selling it was it had to be an RT. I couldn't strip it. And in order to fix the RT, I had to buy all kinds of, like, the metal tree that holds the fiberglass fairing on. I had to repair some fiberglass pieces that are broken, replace that triple tree or tree part thing. I had to replace all of the plastic boxes that are broken, keys, the engine bar, one of the engine bars was cracked. Things just started adding up. So I went to him and I said, I just don't think I can sell you the bike as it is. And to turn it into a rideable bike, I'm going to need to spend even more money. And I'm already at the point after the shop, work and the let's go, we'll go. That road can be a little sketchy. After the shop work and after the, parts, I'm basically just $400, $500 shy of what I was going to sell it to you for. And that's not even including my labor, right? And now I need to go and actually like turn around and buy a few things to make this into almost a K75C, which you don't even want. And so he and I kind of agreed to just amicably part ways. It wasn't, he didn't seem too upset about it. I actually feel bad about it because I'm always a man of my word. And I really felt bad that I couldn't. I mean, if I had finished it, I would have been like $5,000 in the hole. And it would have been an RT, and I didn't even fit the RT. So anyway, in November, and also I knew my limits. I knew that I couldn't get this bike, ooh, the heated grips feel good. I couldn't get this bike the way I wanted it either. It needed a new wiring harness. It needed a new tachometer. It needed to be converted to a K75C trim, basically. I also wanted the headlight done, all LEDs all around, a bunch of stuff I wanted done to it. So basically, I hit the point where I knew I needed a higher place. So I looked on the internet, and what I wanted to find was a place that was local to me that had experience with K-bikes. I called around. I found a place, Phoenix Cycle Works in, they're just north of Portland, Maine, Westbrook, Maine. And they had done work on the unit garage K75 kit that I wanted to buy. That was about $3,000, minus the shock, because I already replaced the rear shock. I didn't need an O-Lens shock. And I initially started that conversation. They said, the thing is about that bike is that it's not going to be very comfortable. You had told us in your email you wanted to retain your ABS, which isn't possible. You want to retain the rear luggage racks, because I want the boxes sometimes. And I also had told them that I wanted to retain comfort, be able to ride it all day. And they said they even changed the bar. The bars get changed, so you'll be lower down. Let's go left here. You're going to lose your boxes. The seat's going to be really hard and not coated. It's going to be a show bike. So they talked me out of it. I'm glad they did, actually. A little sandy here still. It's this time of year, which everything's sandy. This thing sounds so good when you're on the higher RPMs. So they had basically talked me out of that and said, it sounds like you just really want to convert this from an RT to a C. And in fact, we could actually make the seat taller for you. We could add more foam to it and recover it for you. We can retain the ergonomics of these kind of bars and the levers that you like. We can retain the heated grips even. We can retain ABS. And we could even make it where the bike is reversible. So if the next owner wanted to purchase an RT and didn't mind doing it themselves, or they wanted to pay a shop to do it, I have now 5 boxes of parts that came off this bike that are RT parts. And that's huge, right? So, like for example, they removed the rear luggage rack and back seat that someone had added. They didn't fill in that fiberglass and paint it. They just put little rubber plugs back there, because that way the next person can pop those plugs out and screw back in that luggage rack, and it's back to where it was. So, sounds good. I had Max BMW pick the bike up. And the great thing about the shop is they're within Max BMW's 100-mile delivery radius. So Max BMW picked the bike up. Basically, it was just motor, tank, and frame. They did the brake service work, and then they also did the valve checks. And then delivered it to Phoenix Cycle Works in Westbrook, Maine. And then I had to go a couple days later and bring like my 3 or 4 boxes of parts that were coming off the bike, and basically, ask them, hey, from this box, use whatever you can, but if you can't use something, I'll get to that later. Do what you want. So that process begun. They did a bunch of stuff. I mean, first of all, they took it down to frame and redid the wiring harness, tidied it up. They didn't replace it. They just tidied it up really well, and they replaced some things, but not, it wasn't a full rebuild. They also took the wheels and exhaust off and had those sent off to a powder coater. And the engine covers were taken off on the left and right side, sent to a powder coating shop locally. Then they proceeded with basically getting the seat down to the pan. They put the OEM foam on it, and they put another layer of foam on top of it. So it's the OEM foam with the extra foam, so it's taller but reversible. I still have the original leather cover, but they recovered it with a vinyl product. They replaced, this is a Denali M7, which I already have a video up on reviewing it that I'll publish after this one. This is the Denali M7 headlight, LED headlight. It has a low and a high beam, which is nice, with a unit garage fairing windscreen. And then we have a Moto Gadget. This is the nicest, the very nicest sort of speedo tack converter you can get. I actually would have preferred analog gauges, but this is just a much nicer package with a hell of a lot more functionality, so I'm okay with it. I have these mirrors, obviously, because the RT fairing had windscreen, headlight, reflectors, and mirrors built into one. So we basically had to kind of like start fresh with that. They changed the ergonomics of this a little bit to make it a little taller, the riser, but they maintained the RT sort of carry over here, which I can still use for my heated grips, which are on now, ABS, hazard flashers, and there's the windscreen up-down, which doesn't work anymore because there's no more up-down windscreen. But I'm going to replace that fuse at some point this summer with a USB power on-off switch, so I can hook up the Perfect Squeeze here with the Qi charger built into it. Because this bike is still a long-distance bike. It could still go. Yesterday I did 4 hours of riding on this bike, 175 miles. It was great, no problems at all. But the only thing only problem I really had would be just sort of the throttle is really heavy, as is the brake and clutch lever. I mean, they require, dare I say, manly force to really get them to engage. So that's really the only. I'll do a quick stop and walk around here for you guys. So you guys can get an idea what this thing looks like, even though I've done a walk around video with my gimbal, which will go up after this already. So So here it is. They also had to, I didn't know this, but the RT radiator was too big. They had to buy a K75C radiator to fit the K75C cowl there. Maintained ABS, which is nice. They moved this the coolant hose got moved into here. You see how this has been coated? And then you can see here, these are the plugs I was talking about, how these are filled in. This is just fiberglass chipped from that luggage rack sitting on it. Obviously, I retained the boxes, so those can still go back on here. I just took them off a few minutes ago because I wanted to see how the bike looked with them off. I think it looks really good. And of course the headlight. There you go. Those of you that are not going to watch the gimbal walk around. So that's low beam. Looks good, huh? It's raining a little bit. We're going to take it on the interstate. First time I've done that since I took it home the 21st of December from Virginia. So, this is all kind of the original paintwork, which I'm happy with. Here's the Moto Gadget. You've got RPM here. You've got speed. You can click through this little button here clicks through all the different options. So you've got trip meter, odometer, time, voltage, acceleration, speed, RPM, 0 to 100, average speed, high speed, acceleration, fuel, hours, clock, and back to speed again. And the odometer sits here with the RPM gauge on the top. It's really easy to use. It's really fast. It's actually like 1,200 little LED lights that all illuminate as needed, which is pretty neat, actually. Good way to do a screen. It does mean that some of the numbers, MPH is kind of weird looking there, but it's really not that terrible. Let's get back on there. Let's go on the interstate here. Oops. And of course, what's nice about them raising the seat up is it actually fits me much better now. Raising the handlebars and the seat up made it where I told them I wanted to be able to flat foot it, but I didn't want to be able to be knees bent into it. So by them raising the seat up, it helped a lot with fitment of just how I sit on it. The only complaint of the K75 in general is just the lack of a sixth gear. You know, you get through the gears pretty damn fast. Now you're in fifth, doing 65. I mean, I feel every bit of wind. This is actually a test for me to see how well the windscreen does. Woo! I'm at 70 now. He just said it's possible that the windscreen could be a couple miles off, but once you've, while you're accelerating, but once you're at a certain speed, it pretty much, you know, it understands after a couple of seconds of where you actually are. It's just during rapid acceleration or rapid slowdowns, you're going to find that it'll be a little slow to update. Now, this RT, or the K75 motor, there's so much power. I mean, it's a large displacement engine for touring, made 25 years ago. And it's just so goddamn fast. But what's amazing about it is it's fast in like an unbridled way, because it's just, there's not any electronics. Which is why I wanted to keep ABS. I'd say that road test went really well. Whew. God damn, that was fun. Kind of want to do it again. Yeah, we're gonna do it again. Then I'll come back down Town Way. What I want to add to this is the crash bars. I ordered K75C engine covers and bars. So I've got rubber covers and bars coming. That is a lot of fun. And the problem would be that why this isn't a touring bike anymore is because you get all the wind. It is a naked bike. So when you're doing a long highway ride on this thing, it really takes the breath out of you riding this thing all day. The power's there. She can hit 100. But you don't want to hit 100 because it's so damn scary. Also, it's hard to find radials for this size. Like all but one tire for this bike is a bias ply, and radial's a little harder to get. Even with a great helmet like the Shoei GT Air 2, this thing is like just so goddamn loud. I feel like I'm in a goddamn wind tunnel. Alright, we hit 80, I'm good with that. Woo! Almost got a little distracted there. So, let's do a breakdown of the, goddamn. Let's do a breakdown of the cost. So, whew, sorry, I need to catch my breath here. So this thing was, let's call it $1,500 new because I had to get it home and do hotels and, you know, all that good stuff. crosses the title work, etc. Then I put, let's call it $2 grand, $2,500 into parts. There are $500 in RT parts I'm actually going to put back on eBay that I bought brand new in the plastic that I need to actually just return to eBay. Just list them for what I paid for them. But you know, stuff isn't cheap. You got a whole brake overhaul, the shocks, the all of the ignition bits were changed, air, new hoses, radiator, you know, spark plugs, coil pack, all of the lubricants, final drive, pull the final drive, lube the clutch, etc., etc. All that was pretty expensive. And then I sent it to this place, and they actually did a really good job. I should close with that, actually. They did a nice job, and they quoted me about $4,200. Now, before you freak out, note that's actually what I thought it was going to cost. It's about $4,500 to $5,000. And the reason why I thought it was going to cost that, it's starting to ranch if I get home, was because I knew that the parts that I wanted were going to be expensive. I knew the Moto Gadget was going to be $500. This was going to be $75 to $100. It's going to be $400 for the LED headlight. You know, $50 to $75 for mirrors. We're going to need to buy some C parts off eBay. And then I know powder coating can get expensive too. So I knew that there were going to be costs associated with what my request was. So I actually expected to spend about $2 grand in parts. And then the rest would be labor. And it actually worked out about that. And in fact, they had quoted me around $4 grand to do everything if I didn't want to powder coat the wheels and the exhaust. Wheels and exhaust would have been about $4,700 to do that too. And then one thing they told me is, in fact, they usually end up not losing money, but they don't. The way they do their business model is they quote you based on the project. Unless something horribly unforeseen happens, they don't come back to the owner and ask for more money. And an example of that is they end up having an issue where they didn't realize it. They had to go and buy a $250 K75RT radiator that was in good condition on eBay. You can't buy them new anymore. And so finding one was hard, and they didn't know they even needed it. But they never went back to me and told me that. Another situation is they had problems with the key that I had. The key was not filed down, but it was just in bad shape, and the ignition was in bad shape. So they ended up spending money by going to Max BMW, getting new keys, and getting a new ignition switch. Another $100 or so. And they never went back to me and told me that until the day I picked it up, and they didn't charge more money for it. They just said, hey, it was part of the experience. Or part of the job. They quoted what they would do, and that's what they did. I made the choice to have them go ahead and do the exhaust and wheels powder coating. So that was a later addition that I made that they charged appropriately for, in my opinion. So I'd say they did a nice job of quoting what it was going to cost, and they spent a full 2 months from drop-off date to be picking it up, or to it being ready, a full 2 months. And that's about what I was expecting. They initially had told me 3 months, and I ended up being 2, which was nice. What else? Well, that's pretty much it. So, they also made, I have big hands, so they could put on bigger grips, which is nice, but they retain the heated elements, which is great. They're nice and warm. Yeah, the only problem I've had since I picked it up was that the powder coating at the header is already peeling off, and they already said they would fix it for me whenever I wanted to mail in the header, or I could bring the bike to them or mail it to them, the header. So that's going to get fixed. The other issue is these bolts holding the headlight and holding the windscreen weren't tightened down. They were loose. And actually, before I left, I told Heather, because she's the one that she drove me over to Portland, and I rode the bike back 3 hours or so each way. I told her before I leave, I should probably get my tool roll just in case. And then I decided not to. And little did I know, as soon as we got like 5 minutes into the ride, I realized that this thing was shaking all over the place. And then the bolts that are down here on the sides that are holding in the headlight You know, the 2 bolts there were just loose, or 4 bolts were loose, which it sucks. But you know, there were 2 guys working on the bike for a month. One guy started something, another guy was supposed to finish it and didn't. That kind of stuff happens. I'm not worried about it. I was glad they responded so fastly about the powder coating issues. I guess last thing was I really didn't know if the fuel gauge was still reliable. So I did do 100 miles, and then I stopped at the gas station and only needed 2 gallons. So I know that, okay, the fuel gauge is still working appropriately. It's supposed to get about 200-ish miles to a tank. Or I think it's 250, but I get the gas light coming on at 200. Obviously the gas light doesn't work anymore, but I have eyes. I can see when it gets to the red right there, and I'll know it's time to get fuel. This thing hasn't stranded me in, you know, a couple thousand miles. What else? That's probably it. You know, I'm super stoked that this is done. The GSA was my only bike. I've had 3 of them, and for the first 4 years of riding, the GSA was my only bike. And then I got the Beta, and that's amazingly, I mean, I love that bike. It's so goddamn light, and it's still a 500cc, so it's a little rocket at like 289 pounds. But because it's 289 pounds and a single cylinder and a 2x4 seat, I ride it to work like once a month, but it's really a trail bike. It's an enduro bike. So that one, it's not really an around town bike. Heather has the F750 GS, which is her bike. That's a great around town bike. However, it's too small for me. It's too low. I can't. I feel like I'm a monkey on a big wheel. So and that's obviously because it's her bike too. I shouldn't be riding it. So I wanted a bike that I could do these kind of rides with. Get out of the house, go around town, maintain the luggage. That's what we have. The K75RT to the C to the LED is what I'm calling it. So here we are. Love the bike. It's probably weighs, I'm gonna guess it probably weighs 400 pounds. I'll have to weigh it this year, but it was like 525 stock. And I'm you know, I think that's a good flickable around town weight, especially for a German bike. But still a 750, still has ABS, heated grips. The only thing it really needs is a windscreen, but I made the choice to not have a windscreen because it's not going to be a touring bike. And so, yeah, that's where we stand. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'm going to go home and get out of the rain. Ride safe, and hope you enjoy this video. She's pretty, huh? Good.